Hi everyone and welcome back for another installment. If you're here, you've more than likely done what I done and broke my switch on the Garrett Pro Pointer. Funny kind of design. If you don't turn the switch on before you slide out the board, you'll rip the switch to bits, and that's what happened to me. I was just going to service it inside, just make sure it was clean and everything. I ended up breaking the switch, so at least I got to make this video out of it and hopefully help someone else. I will show you the switch now in a second and you'll see really is no difference. I mean, it's almost something designed to catch you out. So you can see here the button is up position. And I'm going to press it. And down position. That's the difference between your switch breaking and not breaking. So you can see once it's inside that, it'll actually catch that, just that edge there on the way back in, and you'll pull the top off the switch altogether. You could piece it back together, but it's going to break in the field someday and you're going to be wondering why. That's probably why. So I'm going to change the switch altogether. The only place I could find the switch is eBay. I'm going to leave the link for the guy I got it from. I'm just going to check it out, make sure it's okay with him first. So sound guy, quick shipping. It was here inside 2 days, so happy enough. Just as long as I'm set to go for the weekend, I'm pretty happy, you know. There's a couple of ways to take off this switch. There's 6 pins on the back of the switch. Realistically, to take them off in one go, you'd need to use something like a hot air station. Now I do have a hot air station, but the issue I'm having is there's a capacitor or two on the back of the board, and I don't like putting heat near them. This way it takes a little bit longer. In my opinion, it's neater and it's safer. And it's more likely to be the situation if someone was doing this as a weekend project for themselves. They mightn't have the hot air station. So I wanted to use what you'd normally have in a garage at home. A soldering iron. That's all you need, a bit of solder. I have a few other tools, but I show kind of 2 or 3 ways around doing certain parts of this repair. So at the minute I've sliced into the plastic, but just making sure to stay away from the circuit board altogether. I'm just creating a crack in the plastic, and you can see with the tweezers I'm just working it back and forth, and the bits they'll come off. But just take your time, you know. You want to make sure not to be pulling or dragging out at any of the 6 pins. You don't want to damage the board, because that's when things get overly difficult. There's no real need for it. You just take your time and it'll come off piece by piece. Eventually, when the plug is actually taken away from the board, the 6 pins will be standing individual. They won't be connected whatsoever. It's the plastic that's really holding them together at the minute. You can see there, it comes off in big enough chunks. Take your time. As I said, it's a weekend project. I've cut this video down as much as I could to make it kind of watchable, and you're still talking about half an hour. You know, realistically, if you haven't got experience with soldering or something like that, you're looking at an hour, 2 hour project. Take your time, it won't go wrong. If you rush it, or you know, there's chances of you destroying the board, and that would be a pain. Especially this one, as this one's it's actually fairly new. I don't know, sometimes in the field I was getting false signals, and you know, I was resetting it like a yard away from me, and I was struggling to pick up 1 or 2 bits and pieces, and I just had to open it up just to have a look and see what's going on inside. That's when this happened. It's all a learning curve, at least. You know, it might be my misfortune, but hopefully someone watching this video will be able to gain the knowledge from it. So let's see, we might be able to zoom in here and get you a closer pick in a minute. There we go, that's better. Forgive the camera at the minute. I'm in the process of saving for a camera, so I'm using my Samsung Galaxy. It's doing the job, but Be nice to have a dedicated camera for you guys. You can see the plastic is coming off in little chunks. Take your time. Don't put any pressure on the joints. Remember them solder joints are cold. You don't want to pull them away from the board or anything, because you will do damage to the board. You know, you'll pull see the copper rings. You'll pull them, or you'll pull the trace out of the board, and then it can be a pain. Just take your time. More or less, if you follow what I'm doing here, it's a pretty easy repair. Probably the hardest part of this repair is getting the board and everything lined up and getting it back in the unit. I don't know, like, it's a good design and everything for use, but for sliding the board in and out, I mean, God almighty, it can be difficult. You're gonna take your time, and you'll see towards the end here just exactly what I mean. Now you can see all the pins now are separated. The base of the plug is still there. That will pop out once the first couple of plugs come out. And this is the best method I have found. If the soldering joints for the 6 pins go all the way through the board right to the back. See, it's very easy to find them. There are 6 pins in a line right to the back of the board. Now if you grab the pin, say start on the top left like I've done there, and heat the area where the pin is on the back of the board. Heat that area until the solder flows, and then your pin will pop out complete and clean. Now it doesn't get much better than that. So 1 down. So same thing again. You'll even see me here. I'll put a little bend just to get a bit of grip. I'm not levering. I'm not dragging. I'm not pulling. These things they'll fall out once the solder is warm enough. They'll fall out. There's nothing holding them really. Bar the solder, of course. So you can see here, a little bit of heat. As soon as the solder flows, pin pops out. Just be careful. I mean, you can't really do any damage this side of the board. If you're right-handed, you'll be grabbing these pins with your right hand. Your left hand is the one at the back of the board with the soldering iron, and that's the one that can do damage. So just be careful. You know, you don't want that soldering iron going wild at the back of the board. There you go. That's the first 3 out, and you can see the plastic has already popped up. There we go, nice and clean. And there you see the plastic. The last of it. There you go. As you can appreciate, this way you're not putting excess heat near the board. There is a lot of components, maybe not on this side, but on the other side of the board there is. And I really don't like putting heat down when it doesn't need to be there. This probably takes a few more minutes, but 100 times safer. So once again, we're going to heat the pin by the back, and it just pops out. There you go. Last 2. Little bend again, just to get a bit of leverage. Not that we're not pulling. It's just, you can see, it's literally just sliding out. Once that solder is wet, it'll slide out. No force needed. Like these components in the boards, they're very delicate as is. So anytime you're really putting force on something when you're dealing with components this small, it's usually too much force. So you can see in the middle of the picture the 6 terminals where the switch goes in. That's from the back. So what I'm going to use here now is I'm going to use a bit of isopropanol. If you don't have it, it's not a game changer, but it'd be nice to clean the board. I like to clean it as much as possible, and I use isopropanol. I get mine from AS Composite Ireland. They're down in Sligo. Really nice guy to deal with, and top quality stuff. I get a bottle there. I think it's a litre. It lasts me 3 months to 3 to 6 months. And it can be used for so many things. It's great for cleaning and degreasing, and it's a good time now as well while you're cleaning to get rid of any of the stray metal. If you put this back together and one strand goes in there, I mean, the machine is useless. You need to make sure at this stage there's no metal shards or little tiny bits come back in there. The problem we have now, though, is the six holes are sealed. They're sealed with solder. You know, you couldn't put that switch in place there now because the holes aren't there yet. They're still filled with solder. So this is the two methods I've talked about earlier. The first one being to use a desoldering iron. Now, I figure 90% of the people out there with a soldering iron might not have this, so I work two ways around doing this. This was pretty easy. You can see there's a hollow tip, and it's got a plunger here. We charge the plunger, press the button, and it sucks through the tip. So as it heats the solder, you press the button, and it'll suck the solder through the tip. Really easy. So I'll give you a quick demonstration. Just put a bit of flux down as well. It helps with the helps to create the seal. There you go. Heat. Press the plunger. You can see when I recharge the plunger, it throws out the smoke again. Simple as that, and just same process for the 6, and you'll have 6 clean holes that you can insert the pins into. The other method, as I don't think most people that have a soldering iron won't have the desoldering iron, is if you have a component line at home, one of these type of components that has, you can see the wire coming each side of this component now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat the back like earlier. Well, when it becomes wet, I'm going to push through, but I'm going to keep moving. I'm not going to let it set. So you can see here now, once it gets wet, and there you go, right the way through, and keep wiggling, keep wiggling, keep wiggling, and now the solder is set. So what we can do from the side that your fingers are on, don't pull back out again, because there is a coating on the bit that you push through, and sometimes it's too big and it won't come back out the hole, and you could do damage by pulling and dragging at the board. So cut the bit that your right hand is on. So you can see here the little components I'm using. So once you cut that, you'll just be able to pull the rest through the board, and you're left with, you can just see on the top right, it's not as clean as the other method, but it does work, you know. It saves you buying a desoldering iron. It'll save you 30-40 euro, 40-50 for a decent one, you know. So as you can see, the bottom right there is a hole going all the way through. That's just what we need. Both methods, they work, like, you know, but it's just depends on what you have. Again, I'm using isopropanol. It's great stuff. It just, I mean, you can't use too much of it. It evaporates so fast as well. It doesn't leave any dampness on the board or anything. Be careful. I'm just taking off the stickers because they don't last well for this repair. They usually get tatty and torn and old looking. So I just slide the blade on underneath and pull them clean away. You want to get that blade down kind of level with the board if you're doing anything like that. Be sure not to tear into the board. And again, while we're here, both sides clean with isopropanol. And we're nearly ready for the fun stuff. Make sure the switch goes on the right side of the board. I've seen it before where a guy put it on the wrong side of the board. I don't mean it as an insult to him or anything. It can happen. It can easily happen. You take your eye off the ball for a minute. That could easily be soldered on the other way around. In which case you would have to go back to the very start all over again. And probably buy another switch. That would be the easiest way. You can see here I'm using a little clamp. I found this clamp works great for this job, because that switch has to sit completely flush with the board, not on the side you're looking now, underneath. It has to, because there is little or no room for that switch to get past the bracket that's in the plastic tube, you could say, of the detector. You'll see it one more when I'm putting it together. But that just holds it perfectly snug and tight. It allows me to put maybe one or two joints here. I'm going to go for each corner. That'll hold it in place until I can get them two done, and then the rest can be done with the clamp removed. Again, take your time. There's absolutely no reason why you can't just step back from the job for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, have a cup of tea, make sure the shakiness goes out of the hand, and try again. It's better to do that than do too much and end up doing damage, and it'd be really difficult to remove this once it's in there. So you can see I've got a joint on the top right and the bottom left. So we have 4 more joints to do. Again, guys, sorry about the length of the video, but there is a lot of important steps in this, and I didn't really want to be missing anything for the people that were watching this. You know, I want to give as much in depth, step by step, as I could. And if you have any kind of experience with a soldering iron, this is very possible. I know people are charging crazy money to get this job done, so nothing you can't do yourself over the weekend. Pick a weekend, maybe it's too wet, it's too bad to go out detecting yourself. Pick that weekend and spend an hour or two at this. You'll be proud every time you use the Pro Pointer. After that, you'll be a little bit more proud. And there we go. You can see the switch is sitting exactly on the board. It's sitting perfectly flush. If that was any higher, it wouldn't be able to go back in the casing. Here I'm just grazing over the connectors, just cleaning up the ends small little bit. Lovely. Excellent. Always a nice sound to hear. So we know the switch is working. What I did earlier is I disconnected the 3 wires that go back down to the end of the detector, just to make it so I could actually video this. I tried it with it attached and it was just too difficult, and you wouldn't have seen as much. So I'm just gonna, my last chance to give the board a clean before it goes back in. You notice as well I'm wearing gloves. If you have them, wear them. I mean, the oils in your fingers and stuff, it's not good for these boards. So, and it's pointless really cleaning and scrubbing the board and then putting bare hands back on it again. Don't get me wrong, it's grand, it'll do, but for the sake of a pair of gloves. Okay. You can see the three wires that are coming from the end of the detector. These need to be they need to be a good joint on these, well sealed. If anything, you know, you need to make sure these are probably the strongest, because when you're fitting the board back into the detector again, they can very easily come loose. You know, there's a bit of pressure on them during the installation again, so it should be good solid joint. They're not my fingernails, just as if anyone has any interest, that's my assistant Sophie for today. Just finishing up the last connection now, nearly done. As I said, one of the hardest points is getting the board back in. There's runners on each side. I mean, really have a look in there before you just go pushing the board in. There's runners each side. If the board goes down them runners, you should be pretty okay. Now just bear in mind that button has to be down. If you try and go in even at them runners and push it in, it will break the switch and you just have to start all over again. There we have 3 strong joints. Once again, we'll just give it a little cleaning with the eyes proper now. One thing I like to do while I have it open and it's in this position is I'm just going to wrap maybe 4 wraps of clear cellophane tape, just normal tape. I could use insulating tape or something like that, but I really want to be able to see through it. That's the whole point of using this. The idea being is once I put this on, and I put 3 or 4 layers there, I can stop the cables from bending at the solder joint. They'll actually bend a little bit further down. It just takes the pressure off the solder joints. I've seen as well people having problems with these detectors getting chattery. They're just signaling all the time. A lot of it can be solved by just doing that tape mod. It's just that it's a thing that the black cable in the center is fine. I mean, that's got a plastic coating. The two red ones on either side, they're actually coated with a really fine layer of I'm not actually sure what it is, but it can easily rub off. And if you have a bare section of that, and it's even close to the board, it can sound off, you know. Very easy, just put down the tape and it solves all that. Another thing to remember when the board's going back in as well is the cable has to be held up in a certain position. And this is where it gets slightly complicated, and I tried to get as much as I can on screen, but it's really impossible. You have to really concentrate at this bit. I just use a bit of cable I have lying around just to hold on to the black cable.
Sophie's money!
Just doing one final test before sticking everything back together. There you go. Once it's in there in place, you'll know the button will sit right in the middle in place where it should be. Okay, so one of the last jobs to do is replace the screw that's in the back holding the board in, and the button, of course. Yeah, just really pay attention to the way the board is going in, and if the cable is getting snagged. It can get snagged on a few things in there. It can get snagged on the front of the board, and you'll actually be able to see that through that porthole there where the switch is. Once the board is on the way in, just keep an eye in there as well to see is it dragging the cable. If you like this kind of stuff, there's also we have a sister channel. It's Smart Repair 24/7. It's got a lot of electronic stuff on it as well. If you find this interesting, you might like to jump over and have a look. As you can see, the screws in place. New battery. And the final test. Excellent. Guys, it's been fun. I hope you liked the video. If you like it, just take the time, take a couple of seconds just to hit the like button, comment and subscribe. Makes it all worthwhile making these videos. Thanks a million.